Revelation 12:11. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. For they loved not their lives, even unto death.
The things that have been inflicted onto me, the things that I've inflicted onto myself, the Lord healed me completely.
All things, all beings submit to him. I could speak the name of Jesus and that evil would leave.
All I could feel was a peace and him say, "Not yet, daughter."
I called his name, and within a second, my breathing was restored and I could breathe normally again. I could not believe it.
And I saw Jesus interceding for me. And he said to me, "I've been protecting you from things you never even knew about."
Martyria. Welcome to episode 11, Trinity's Martyria, the young mother and true relationship. What would you do if God told you it wasn't your time yet? How would you spend the rest of your days? Join us now as we have natural talk about Trinity's supernatural walk.
So I grew up with drug-addicted parents. Fortunately for me, my mother has been sober and serene for going on 10 years. But my father, my biological father, is still deep into addiction, unfortunately. I grew up with my mother until about age 10. And then at that point in time, Child Protective Services had intervened and they moved me to my aunt's house. And then so I was kind of bounced around for a while. I even was in foster care for a little bit of time. And I experienced in the final place that I was put before moving back in with my mother, I experienced a lot of abuse, unfortunately. And I lived with my grandmother and my biological father. Um, and I've since then forgiven them, but just for the purposes of this question, I was there for about 6 or 7 years until I became pregnant. And then I moved in with my mother. CPS intervened back again, and just the situation had become clear that things were going on at home. And so then from that point on, I lived with my mom until I moved out at 17.
And what age were you when you were pregnant? I'm not sure if I have the math exactly right, but
Yeah,
pretty
so I was
young.
I
Pretty
was
young.
very young. Yeah, I became pregnant at 14. And
Okay.
I didn't have my child until I was 15. And following that, I had another child when I was 16, so back to back. And so I haven't had any more children since, but I did have them quite young. Yes.
Sure. So when you became pregnant, you said CPS kind of got involved, and you said that looked like you moved back in with your mom. Your mom at that time was sober, or was sobering up, or okay,
Yes, she was sober.
awesome. So you have a child, and then you have another child. Your high school age at that point. Are you still doing school and raising your kids at the same time?
Yes. Yes, I actually
Okay.
I took my kids to school with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there are some schools that will do that where they'll even have kind of daycare provided at the school. Is that what it was, or
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Okay, very cool. So you graduate, I assume at that point, are you, well, geez, if you're 23 now, so upon graduation, are you transitioning to college? Are you planning your life at that point?
Yeah. So I graduated high school, and it was during COVID, and so I ended up walking
Mm,
the stage on my birthday, which was a fun time.
mm,
I then transitioned into a local community college. I went for a while. I ended up not really liking the degree that I chose. So then I switched, went to a different school, and then kind of did the same thing there, and then went to a different school. And so I'm still working on my degree, but it's been a process. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did the same thing. I applied for one college, got accepted, didn't end up going, applied to another, got accepted, didn't end up going, and then started working for a while, and then ultimately did go to college and got a degree at that time. But yeah, honestly, I find that to be pretty common. A lot of people are just trying to figure it out. I think there's always positives and negatives when you have a lot of options sometimes, and so it's nice to have that opportunity to kind of dig in, see if it's what you want
Mhm.
to do, and then if not, then kind of change course, literally change course. So at some point, well, I guess one thing I want to know is, so in your upbringing, was religion or church or Christianity or anything else really a major part of the household or the living experience?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a Baptist church. Um, I went there from age 3 until I became pregnant. Um, I did experience a little bit of church hurt, just because I experienced some misrepresentations of Christ and Christ's love and what that looked like. Um,
Hmm.
and then I also went to a non-denominational church during the weekdays. They offered like a kids church, and so they would pick us up and we would go, and I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. What do you think would be an appropriate response for a church if someone in their congregation gets pregnant at a fairly young age? Like, what is a
Um,
Christ-like response?
I would say definitely so for me, I considered abortion, and that was something that I didn't quite understand. I didn't want to be pregnant. I didn't understand why it was happening. And I think as a church, we should be supporting young mothers, and giving them information on what abortion and like other options look like and what they can do, especially emotionally and physically. I'm so glad that
Mm.
I didn't choose that route. But I think also just accepting, them and loving them, and being there as a support for the child that's coming into the world, and not expecting them to present a certain way, but other than how they are and who they are, um, and really just being that loving support, I believe would be the best way for the church to be involved.
Yeah, I don't remember where the set of verses are, but I remember when I was younger and I was reading in the Bible about, if you catch someone in a sin, go to them, and if they don't change their ways, then bring another person and then go to them, and if they still don't change their ways, then go in front of the church elders, and if they still don't change their ways, then ostracize them and treat them like an unbeliever. And so in my mind, when I was young, I was like, oh, easy. This just means somebody doesn't want to stop sinning or change their ways. Then we just kick them out and we move on. But then I was challenged when I was sadly much older about that. When I was listening to a sermon, when they asked the simple question, and how do we treat unbelievers? And it changed my whole perspective about those verses, where it was like, wait a second, if we're treating somebody like an unbeliever, and how do we treat unbelievers? We treat them with love, we treat them with respect, we treat them with care. We're very intentional with them because we are representatives of Christ, right? At that point. So you find yourself pregnant, and the church may have very strong opinions about that, but at the end of the day, you are walking through that, and the church should partner with you and be there and be a support to you. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And not to say that that means you're an unbeliever at that point, but I think that's the challenge, is when somebody is pregnant at such a young age. You very quickly realize there is permanence to some decisions that you may not have thought were so permanent at one time. Um, but yeah, no, I agree. It would be so
so needed. And unfortunately, I don't think that your story is a unique one. I've heard that from several people who are not at all interested in church anymore for that very reason. Got pregnant at a young age, and the church is like, and you're not welcome here anymore. I'm like, wait a second, this should be the first place
You
that
should
they
go.
should be
Yeah.
welcome, you know?
Yeah.
If they can't come here, where are they going to go, you know? So you're raised in the church, in a Baptist church. You had a non-denominational church that you'd also participate in as a kid. As time goes on, you grow up, and then at the time of your pregnancy, would you consider yourself a Christian, or were you still like involved in the church and just got things just happened? I guess I don't know.
So I would say that at that point in time, I was no longer involved in the church. And I also didn't quite have an understanding of what a relationship with Christ was like. I kind of like thought of church as like somewhere to play with my friends and somewhere that I went on Sundays. I didn't quite grasp like true relationship. Um, so I think after kind of being told that I wasn't welcome, I was like, okay, I don't want anything to do with it. And so at that point when I was pregnant, I wouldn't have considered myself a Christian.
I got you. Yeah. And man, I wonder what would have changed if the church would have responded differently, right? I mean, who knows? We
Mhm.
can never go back, but it is something that hopefully the modern day church can learn from. Um, so you graduate, you're into college, you're still into college right now. At what point would you say was the first time that you remember um like hearing Christ call to you, or that moment where you're like, "Hey, maybe there's something to this Christianity outside of hanging out with my friends."
Yeah, so I had gotten a job with a really well-known company in Colombia where I'm from. And they had a faith community based like team, like faith and
Hmm.
community. And so they would come around and they would talk and they would offer like if you wanted to talk at all or if there was anything that you had questions about, they were willing to kind of sit there and walk you through it. I had heard about it and I was pondering and I was like, man, I don't know if I wanna do that, and at the time, I was dabbling into New Age spirituality, and so I was looking for something to kind of fill that hole, in my heart, and so I had actually went out to this huge tree that's in our town that's really popular or quote unquote "famous," um, and I sat there and I looked at the podium and someone had wrote a verse in Proverbs. And I was, before I had looked it up, I was like, why can't I find anyone to love me? Like, why do I feel like love is just so distant from me? And it was a verse. I wish I could remember exactly what verse, but I just know how I felt when I read it. It was a verse about what love actually looks like. And it was in Proverbs, and, I believe I believe. I'm still kind of new, so I don't know too many yeah, but I had read it and I was like, "Whoa," like, this just answered a question, like, why the love I was looking for wasn't fulfilling, why it wasn't working. And so at that point, I had felt just called to ask around my workplace if anyone had a Bible. And
Mm,
so I remember just I don't know how to explain it, but like just love rushing my body at that tree. And then the next day at work, I was like, man, I've got to find somebody who has a Bible. And I knew a coworker because he had asked me for a donation for his church. Um, and I walked up to him and, hey, do you have a Bible? And his face just lit up. And he was just like, yeah, I've got one. I've got one in my car. Let me go get it for you. And at that point in time, I get the Bible and then I'm just like, okay, this is something that I should start reading. Like I know grew up in the church, but maybe something this time is different. And
mm,
so then I start reading it and I start in Proverbs and Then the next day, it's so funny how it worked. The next day after I get the Bible, I'm called to ask somebody about a church. Just like ask about a church. And so the first person I asked, they went to a Pentecostal church and I was like, maybe that's not for me. I'm not too familiar. So I asked somebody else and they mentioned a non-denominational church. And it's the church that I still go to this day.
Hmm.
Um, and so then I went there, and I felt like in that moment, the first time I went is when I really felt like Jesus's love and just like calling me to him. And like it was extraordinary. It was like I had felt welcomed and I had felt just a sense of belonging that I had never felt before. Um, so
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like that was the first time I really truly felt Jesus calling me by name.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So prior to that, you're into New Age, you're, into, what did you say, like spiritual, just spiritualistic sort of things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, are you, is it kind of like tarot cards? Is it, I mean, I guess new age really encompasses a lot of things. So was it
Mhm.
anything specific you were doing? And when you were doing those things, were you searching for something specific? Because later you mentioned, uh, there was like a God shaped hole, I think you said, or a God shaped, piece missing or something. You felt something was missing. Um, uh, for, I guess, first, how would you describe that? Like how would you describe there was something missing? Like, what does that feel like?
To me, it feels like you're constantly searching for something, but you don't quite know what it is. Something to fill the void of whether it be like love or guidance or just something that I felt personally was just an absence of love in my life and support and belonging and community. And I felt like if I sought them out on my own through um, tarot or new age spirituality or crystals or just people who did those things, I thought I would fill the void that I was feeling. Um, and I'd say that it really just feels like an emptiness. Just like there's something that is missing that you need to be filled up with. And yeah, it was difficult. It was very difficult.
Hmm. So when you were practicing new age and crystals and things like that, were you ever feeling filled? Were you ever getting those feelings like, oh, okay, this feels good, or this is what I've been needing, or anything like that?
Temporarily, um, at first it would feel like the right thing to do. Like finally found something that could fix my problems. I felt like it gave me a sense of control in my life that I was so desperately seeking. Um,
Hmm.
because I'd never felt in control in my entire life at that point. It always felt like things were happening to me. And so when I would practice those things, it felt like I had a sense of like I know what's to come, I know what to expect, I know what to do now. And almost felt like people were more accepting of that. Like what I would say about my experiences versus like now um,
Hmm.
which I find very odd, but, yeah.
Yeah. So did you? So you found some success in that while you were doing the crystals. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the crystals, things like that. I know some people can be very religious about, like, in the morning you have to do this and you have to say this and you have to, that sort of thing. But were you like conjuring anything up, or was it more about like, this is how I help myself? This is how, like you were saying, like, this is how I take control.
Yeah, it was more so taking control and, like, helping myself, and then eventually I went on to, giving other people readings, and I felt like that I had become experienced enough in it, and Quickly I found out that it was not good, that it didn't fulfill what I was looking for. At first, like I had mentioned, like it felt like the right thing to do, and people supported it. Um,
Hmm.
it was quite the journey. Yeah.
When you were giving people readings, I assume you were using tarot cards for that, or
Mhm.
so while you were doing readings, would you find that you would be fairly accurate? Was it simply like shuffling up and flipping the cards and making a reading off of that, or did you ever feel like you were, I don't know, in tune with something a little bit bigger than yourself, or you're getting access to maybe some secret information about this person, or was it just wholly in the cards?
I think for me, it felt like it was the cards, but also I thought that I was connecting to like the universe, but now I know that it was demons. It was demons for sure. Like it wasn't I thought it was like a good light, like, and like as we know, demons present themselves as beings of light. And so I thought that I was connecting to something good that was giving me information to help the people that I was doing readings for. Um,
Hmm.
but I felt almost wrong after I would do it. There would be like a small voice inside, like, Trinity, this isn't right. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing. And I ignored it because I saw so many like positive reactions to what I was doing. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Gotcha. And how long were you doing that for?
A couple of months, it wasn't super long, but,
Yeah.
I felt like I had enough experience in a couple of months after doing my own personal readings that I could do it for other people. Um, yeah, so not too long, probably about 6 months or a little
So
less.
I got you. So, okay. So yeah, 6 months or so. Um, maybe this is a ridiculous question, but I've never done anything with tarot cards before. But so like, if you're doing a reading on yourself and you flip the cards, whatever the reading is, if it's a negative reading, do you like shuffle and say like, hold on, two to make it true? Like, let me try this again and see if it was right, or when you do, and I don't mean to make light of it, or is it literally like, nope, I've done it. This is what it is. And I just have to accept that this is not a good reading.
Yeah, it was the latter. It was definitely if I drew something that was negative, I would accept it and then almost
Mm,
like attach it and like look for ways for that to be true. Like it's almost like I would try and confirm every reading to be true in my life. And like I also use like angel numbers is what they would call them, I guess now. Um
mm.
and I would look up like the meanings behind them and I felt like that was like a confirmation from like the universe. And I know it sounds so crazy, but I really believed this. Like I really thought that this was true. And so
Hmm.
um yeah, so anytime I would get like a negative or positive reading, I would definitely keep it as is and then I would try and confirm it throughout, like, my day-to-day life.
Yeah, and I mean, on that idea that it sounds crazy, I think being on this side of things, it's easier to say that. But I mean, how long have horoscopes been in every newspaper, every magazine? I mean, like it's really saturated the American culture in
Mhm.
a very real way, and even people who read it for fun, I think, still can open themselves up to the fact that it's like, oh, well, that does kind of sound like me, and maybe there is something to it. I'm such a I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of so distanced from it because I've never been interested in horoscopes. I've never been interested in tarot, and even though Chinese food is some of my favorite food, I don't even like to crack open the fortune cookie and read
Mm.
that because I'm just like, It's really not a big deal. And I mean, I understand that 99.9% of the people who use them in America are just for fun and whatever. But I do think that there is something to, I don't know, even like the lucky numbers on them or things like that, because we are relational people. Humans are relational in their nature, right? So it's like, oh, if my lucky number was, I don't know, 55, and I'm driving down the road, it's like, oh, speed limit's 55. It's, oh man, that's my lucky number. Like, yeah, we want to find and make those connections. And so I just yeah, I think that's so interesting that it's like, well, angel numbers and even yeah, there's yes, like lightly familiar with angel numbers, but yeah, tarot, angel numbers, all that sort of thing. And the crystals, were those used for like cleansing purposes, or like, or are they like, do you hold on to it and it like reminds you of something, or like what was the purpose of the crystals?
Yeah, so I thought that there were properties like something like mystical almost or just like supernatural about them that
Hmm.
would fix what I thought or called chakras in like my body that
Hmm.
were rooted to like traumas or different like emotions. And I thought that utilizing the crystals would fix those traumas and those emotions and kind of make it more positive.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it didn't do anything, for me, well, fortunately, I'd say now, but at the time, I
Right,
felt
right.
like, "Why isn't this working?" And so I used it pretty religiously. Every day I would meditate and I would use, certain crystals, and I would carry certain crystals on me for, like, protection or to make more money or just different things like
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
I got you. So we'll fast forward a little bit to, you're going to this non-denominational church, and
Mhm.
you're talking about like really your first experience with like the love of Jesus, and there's this overwhelming sense of like love, belonging, these things that you were wanting as you were seeking them out in the crystals and the tarot and the chakras and the angel numbers, all that sort of thing. How is it different, or is it different? So like with Jesus, you get that fulfillment, right? But you had said, with the tarot and with the crystals and stuff, you would get these kind of glimpses of fulfillment. So how do you differentiate the two, like to know one is more legitimate than the other, or one is just a different option than the other?
I think the biggest thing that helped me see that what I was doing was not helpful and was wrong was because of the truth of the Bible. I had really started getting into, like, I had specifically read about how divination and how just different things like that were not of God, and they were and I learned that they were just temporary fixes, where with Jesus, it's an eternal and it's an eternal thing. It's a relationship that you have that fulfills you, that is mutual, that is back and forth. Like there's not just a one side of everything. Like there's um communication and collaboration, and whereas like with crystals and things, it was more so like me, just me. Like there wasn't any like relationship or like a feeling of love, or like there were like glimpses, like you had said, like glimpses of like fulfillment, but it wasn't lasting. It wasn't something that actually changed me versus like having a relationship with Christ. And when I first started going to Trinity Community Church, I'll say their name. They're a great church. Um, when I first started going there, it almost was like all of these preconceived notions that I had and all of this information that I had learned was being challenged, ripped apart. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, so this is what truth is, and this is what real love feels like. And so and fulfillment, and I it was almost overwhelming, um, if I could describe it that way, but in a good way. in a really good way, versus with the other things that I was doing, it it would overwhelm me or cause anxiety or confusion. And with Jesus and having a relationship with him, there's no confusion. There's no anxiety. It's just he comforts me and he loves me, and it yeah, there's a huge difference, and I wish I could put into better words on, like, how to describe the difference, but that's what I would say I realized.
Yeah, no, I think you're not alone in that. As far as like not having the right words to say, or not enough to say. Two verses kind of come to mind, and I'm just loosely quoting them from my mind. So if I butcher them, I do apologize. But there's the idea of, if all the trees were pens and all the oceans were ink, we still wouldn't have enough to write of the goodness of God.
Mm,
And then I also am reminded of that verse that says, when we don't know what to say anymore, then the Spirit will intercede and utter things for us. And it's that idea of like, you can say God is good, and there's 100% truth to that, but you know that it's not only that he's good, or it's only that he's peace, or it's only that he's, you know what I mean? All these things where it's like, like you said, there's confusion in the practices that you were participating in New Age, but there is no confusion when you're having that relationship with Christ, and that there's something to be said, because I mean, we live in a world now that we can make extremely precise things, but as precise of a thing that we can make, there's still error, there's still margins of like inaccuracy, right? And I feel like that's kind of how our words are sometimes, right? Like
mhm,
we're saying the things that we believe, we feel them, we're trying to express them, but we know that it's like God is everything that we could say plus one. It's
right,
like
right,
it doesn't matter, but it's just that plus one. um
mhm,
yeah, amen. And you're right, it is a very good name for a church. I think it's pretty appropriate, I guess, for for Trinity to go to. That's pretty great. um so so I know you said you kind of you'd mentioned or alluded to the fact that you're still pretty new as a Christian. How long have you been a Christian for?
so I got baptized, um, in November of 2023, and then at that point, I had gone consistently for almost a year, and then I stepped away from the church. And then I recently came back
Okay.
about a month and a half ago, actually. So I
Okay.
consider
All right.
myself a new Christian, yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that you want to talk about, why you stepped away from the church, or is that
Yeah.
a different? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it ties into um my TikTok that I had posted. Um It's I had stepped away from the church because I had fallen into substance abuse.
Mm,
And I felt like I couldn't tell anyone. I felt like if I had expressed the struggles that I was going through, that something similar would happen that had happened when I was a child with the first kind of church hurt I experienced. And not because anyone in the church made me feel that way, but because of the lies I felt were being told to me by the enemy.
mm.
Yeah, so it was a spiral. I spiraled down and I started going less and less, and then finally I stopped going for a period of time. So,
Yeah. Honestly, I think that that's an incredibly important point to make. One of the biggest and most bought into lies that Christians as well as non-believers buy into is that whatever it is that you're doing that is causing you to separate yourself from God is so bad that no one else can know about it, and no one else can
Mm,
relate to you, and no one else needs to know about it because they won't know how to handle it. And even those who go to church but have not struggled with church hurt, or not struggled with but have experienced church hurt, even those individuals still, when they go to church, are reluctant to share the fact that they're human. And
mm,
I think that really that's ultimately at the heart of it, is the devil loves to strip us of our humanity. And the
mm,
less that we recognize that God has created us human on purpose to be imagers of him, the less that we believe that, the easier it is for us to fall into those lies of, whoa, what I'm doing they can't know about, or what I'm doing they can't help with, or what I'm doing I don't want them to see. So
mm,
whether it's you don't think the church is equipped, or whether or not it's that you don't think that you want the church to know about it, both things have the same result: separation.
mhm,
And that's ultimately what the enemy wants, right? That's what he wants, is for us to be separated from that. um so it's unfortunate, but it makes sense, right? That's a very common thing, where people think, I can't take this version of myself to church. I can't be this person at church. And yeah, I would say, if anybody is feeling that way, there's something about me that makes it feel like I can't be a person that goes to church, or I can't be around other Christians, or I can't be around church people because I don't want them to see this. Go, be there,
right.
talk to somebody,
I
share that with
agree.
somebody, because we find every time, because the Holy Spirit is so good, we find every time that there is somebody else there struggling, and it may not be the exact same thing, but we recognize that they're human, I'm human, and all of a sudden we get our humanity back. And then we get that reconciliation where God's like, I made you human. And though I don't want you to be doing whatever it is you're doing, don't feel like you have to run from me and hide from me.
Mm,
Like, I've given you a human family of believers to run to, so that you can run to me together, right? God
right.
doesn't ever ask us to walk anything alone. And again, I would just encourage anybody, if they're feeling like that, don't think that church is too good for you, is too clean for you, is too nice for you, is too perfect for your imperfections.
Mm,
'Cause it's not. That's exactly where God wants you to go and be, and to participate, because hurt people go to church. Just like Jesus said, he's like, I didn't come to heal the well.
right,
I came to
right.
heal those who were sick. And it's like, why do we, as believers, sometimes feel like when we're sick spiritually, we don't want to associate with the church. We don't want to be around it. It's just the irony of ironies. But I think that is, I strongly believe that that's something that the devil likes to do, is when he strips us of our humanity, then he strips us of our ability to connect with others, and to reconnect with God.
Mm, I
So,
agree. I agree. I
yeah.
definitely like to think of the great physician and the church is like the hospital and we're all sick people
Mm,
needing to be healed. So it's
mhm.
something that we want to run towards and not from. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, you're part of the church again now. You've kind of reconnected
Mhm.
with the church. If you were to say something to the church, and I actually think that this question is great, because I think it can go in so many directions, and all of them I think are apt to the conversation. But somebody comes into the church and they are in New Age. They're dealing with crystals and tarot and angel numbers and chakras and all these things. They're trying to find a sense of control, and they recognize, I don't have control. They come into the church. What should the church's response be?
I think the church's response should be love and acceptance, but at the same time, rooted in truth. I think that a lot of people, including myself, were just seeking the truth and what really will fulfill my needs and me spiritually. I think that the church should 100%, um, in my personal opinion, tell them what those things are rooted in, what they can bring, and I think that's evil. And not in a way to offend, but in a kind way. I think that we should approach people who are misguided and lost with kindness, and love and patience for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. And I would say that same exact question, but this time, if somebody is coming to the church who hasn't come for a long time, who maybe used to, or somebody comes and you know that they're coming hurt, what should the church do in response to that?
Keep checking in. Keep trying to get them involved, even if they don't respond or don't come to every church gathering. Just keep them in the loop, because eventually one day it will click, and they'll want to come and be more involved, or they'll want to share or just feel more welcomed. I think when we decide, oh, this person hasn't been responding, or this person doesn't really seem to be um, receiving this well, that we should just stop reaching out, or that we should stop trying to get them involved. And I think it's the opposite. I think that we should almost feels like pestering, but just keep going, because that's what I needed. I really needed someone just there to keep checking in and asking if I'm coming Sunday, or just really, really trying to be involved in that person's life and help them feel like they aren't lost in the cracks. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so you've been going to church again for a few months now. You'd mentioned prior one of the reasons that you'd stopped going was substance abuse. Is that something that is still coming up in your life? Is that something that you've kind of, you know, shucked off, or sloughed off, or is that something that still is part of your everyday struggles?
So I believe I've been delivered. I am completely and 100% sober. I no longer drink to get drunk. I no longer smoke marijuana. I no longer use substances, and I no longer participate in the usage of nicotine. And those have been serious, serious problems for me in the past. Um, and it has been, I have a date in my calendar of the day that I became 100% sober. I wish I had it off the top of my head, but for substances, and um, it's been a couple years, and for nicotine, marijuana, alcohol, it has been a couple months.
So, is there anything else that you wanted to share as part of your testimony before we wrap up?
Oh, sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I kind of ran up the stairs there for a second, but I'd say the moment that I felt Jesus, like, um, and this is in relation to my TikTok. This is when I got into my car wreck. I'd like to share a little bit about that.
Hmm.
So essentially, it was a supernatural experience for me, because this is what really pushed me to stop with the substance abuse, and to get back in to church and like reach back out. It took me a while to get back into church, but I was it had been a 3-day bender for me. I had been um under the influence of cocaine for 3 days straight. I didn't sleep. I was seeing things. I was paranoid. And so I ran out. And so I was driving to go get another fix of cocaine. And this was midnight, and I was on the highway. I had just picked it up, and I was on the way back home. And I there was no warning sign. There was no, like, I didn't like drift off. Sometimes, when you're driving, you'll just kind of like snooze out, or for just a quick second, and you're like, oh my goodness. If you've been driving for a long time, or you're really tired, but I didn't have any of that. I was on cruise control going about 75, 80 miles per hour. Um, and then I woke up in the grass. and I was like, wait, where am I? Like, what's going on? And I felt so much fear. I was like, what's going on? And I was just on the highway. And then I shoot off of the bridge. Like, and there's two bridges, and I'm in between the bridge. And here's the highway I was on. I go off into the bridge and I'm in the air. And this is all in just a matter of seconds. And I just remember pleading for my life. And I'm like, God, please don't take me now. Please, please. Like, I know I've messed up. Like, I know, and I'm going to get emotional now, but I know that I've done wrong, but this is not how it's supposed to end. And, all I could feel was a peace and him say, not yet, daughter. And I hit the ground, and like it was about 15 feet in the air. I was 15 feet in the air, and I hit the ground and I close my eyes and I just hear everything crashing, and every part of my car was smashed in except for the driver's side. And my phone was in pieces, so I had no way of calling the ambulance or calling anybody for help. Somebody had just happened to be driving at midnight the other direction and had seen the whole thing, and they had already called the police. So the ambulance was 4 minutes away. I
Hmm.
just remember when I hit the ground and I opened my eyes, all I could say was, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you." Because in that moment, I knew that the only thing that stopped me from dying was God.
Hmm.
And and the doctors confirmed that they had no idea how I lived or how I survived the way that the car had hit the ground. Um, and I suffered some injuries, but nothing life-threatening, and I fully recovered since then. Um, everything was just so it was just so orchestrated in a way that only God could have done. And like I had gotten to the only hospital in a 30-mile radius that could take care of my injuries. I had gotten there very quickly. Someone had seen the whole thing go down. I had and it was crazy because the doctors and the police that had responded, like the EMS, they had kept asking me, "Were you trying to kill yourself? Were you trying to kill yourself?" Because they couldn't understand how somebody just went off the bridge like that. And I was like, "I just fell asleep. I just fell asleep." And yeah, it was intense. And
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
So, um, amen. Obviously, you're still alive, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, I mean, waking up is a blessing, but walking away from something like that, right? I mean, absolutely, God's hand has to be in it. When you are recognizing that your car is crashing, and you're praying and you're saying, not like this, Lord, don't let me die like this, and you say that you hear God say, what was it, not today, daughter, or not like this, or
Not yet. Yeah, not yet.
not yet.
As if my
Was
story.
that
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, 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 that's okay. I was just curious, like, when you hear God speaking, is that audible? Is that somewhere in your person? Like, how do you recognize that as God's voice?
It was it wasn't audible to my ear, but it was in my head as if I was talking to myself, but it was addressing me as like a separate person. Like God was
Hmm.
addressing me and I could feel peace, like just an undescribable peace. And like I knew that I was going to hit the ground and I knew that everything was going to be okay. And
Yeah.
like it was incredible.
Yeah. And so, earlier you were saying, like, when God said that to you, there was like an intention behind that. What were you saying that was?
Yeah, that my story's not over. That there's more that I'm meant for in this world. And um now and I'm so thankful that I'm able to share this here today because I feel like this is something that I wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for God. To be
Hmm.
able to share this incredible story. So, Yeah, I think there was a lot
Yeah,
of purpose behind why I didn't die.
absolutely. And how long ago was this?
This was it'll be 3 years next year.
Hmm,
So, yeah, it happened at the beginning of the year. It was, February 1st, I believe, 3 years 2 technically almost 3 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, okay. Wow. So, doctors couldn't understand how you survived, but there you are, surviving, right? Um, so what does your walk look like now? What does it look like? I know that you've gone through um a lot of things, pregnancy, substance abuse, getting caught up in a lot of spirituality that tries to take from us in a lot of ways, and now you're encountering the creator who wants to give and is there and is available and wants to have relationship with you, and you've gone through a lot. I mean, you're finding yourself here on a podcast talking about your testimony. So, like, what is the walk look like now? What does your life look like now with all that?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of intentionality, just being intentional about learning who Christ is and like so recently I've started reading the New Testament. I'm in Matthew right now, but learning Christ and like his life and what he does for people and really truly getting to know the gospel is what I'm doing right now. That's what my walk kind of looks like. It's just starting from the beginning, starting fresh, coming from a clean, not clean, but like sober mind, and
Hmm.
trying to avoid any distraction, and just staying really locked in the truth, and trying to reflect that truth to other people, as well as changing different things in my life that I feel don't align with what Christ wants for me. So it's been a journey, and I'm
Yeah.
still definitely in the works, but it's good.
Aren't
It's
we
very
all?
good,
Aren't we
right?
all? Yeah, absolutely. I'm reminded of a book that I really enjoy. I think it's an amazing book for newer believers, but it's by a theologian named Michael Heiser, and the book is called "What Does God Want?" And he doesn't hold out. Pretty early on in the book, he says, "What does God want? You. He wants you." And in light of this podcast, in light of the idea that the enemy is defeated by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, again, it's God saying, "I want to partner with you. I want you to be part of this process." He doesn't need us to be part of this process. He could do it all himself on his own. He could defeat the enemy should he have chosen to do it that way, and we could be perfectly content. But he says, "No, no, no. It's my shed blood and your testimony.
Mm,
Both things defeat the enemy." And what I love about that is, for Christians, regardless of how long they've been a Christian or how new they are, or if they're just starting, or if they have just read one Bible verse over and over for the last 3 months because they just can't get it out of their head, what can we do for God? Share our testimony. That's people are like, "Well, what can I do for God? I don't have any skills. I don't have any." Why are you a Christian? Tell people. Tell people. They need to know you became a Christian on purpose, right? You are serving a living God on purpose.
mm,
Tell people about that, because the life that I used to live before being a Christian, the life that you used to live prior to being a Christian, you're right. All we found was temporary fulfillment that just left us empty, and oftentimes more empty than when we began in a lot of ways. And one thing I love is when Jesus says that it's my peace that I leave with you. And the word peace in Hebrew is shalom. And when we hear the word shalom, it's oftentimes in the Old Testament translated as peace, right? It's a decent translation. However, the heart of shalom is more than peace. It's goodness, it's wellness, but at its heart, it's about wholeness. And so when God says that he leaves his peace with us, what he's saying is the emptiness that we've struggled with, he fills. He leaves us with wholeness. He leaves us with his peace. And that is something that I know, as the type of human that I am, I can't account for on my own. I'm an overthinker. I have all these things that could easily take peace away from me, rob me of my peace. But God leaves his peace in me, his wholeness, his shalom in me, so that I don't need to worry about that. I stay focused on him, and things fall into place because he's the source of it all anyway. So I want to say thank you so much for sharing your martyria, your testimony. If anybody is experiencing things like you've experienced, and I know I've listed them several times already, but if anybody is experiencing anything like you've experienced, do you have social media or a way for people to reach out to you if they want to?
Yeah. So I have an Instagram account. It's Trinity.787. You can definitely send me a message on there or try and connect that way. I also have a TikTok account. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name of my TikTok account.
That's okay. I'll get all that from you afterwards, and and when the episode wraps up, I'll have that posted as well, so people can find it in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Trinity. I truly appreciate it, and thank you for sharing your testimony.
Of course. Thank you for having me.